Good afternoon to you. Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com here. Thursday now, the 21st day of September 2023. Look at that. Boy, I tell you what, we got some stuff happening now. Significant impacts coming from the Carolinas, mainly North Carolina, up through the tidewater of Virginia, the Chesapeake Bay region, and then into the Mid-Atlantic proper. I'm talking Jersey, Maryland, and boy, it's going to be a rough weekend coming up. Whether or not this gets named, and I do think it will, and that'll just kind of help things because we are conditioned as humans to respond to Tropical Storm Ophelia rather than there's a coastal storm out there, right? Right. So we'll get into the mechanics of all of this. I'll try to break down subtropical, non-tropical, and explain that a little bit better just so we understand. But the bottom line is we're going to have some pretty significant impacts here. Coastal flooding, heavy rain, gusty winds, power outages during a weekend where there's a lot going on. We're busy people, and as the expression goes, I know it's not grammatically correct, but ain't nobody got time for that. Unfortunately, nature does not care. So here we go. Let's see what we've got. National Hurricane Center kind of ramping things up rather quickly today. I was trying to go out to lunch with my wife and enjoy just a little bit of quiet time. I was already going to go out to the Outer Banks anyway. Then my partner Jesse, remember Jesse Bass from early years of our projects? Of course, he's still a good friend of mine and a colleague up in Southeast Virginia. He called. He's like, dude, you seeing this? Yes, this morning around 11 a.m., potential tropical cyclone 16, meaning that it does have the potential to become a tropical cyclone, and the National Hurricane Center can go ahead and start issuing advisories. And that helps to pull the trigger on all kinds of bureaucratic stuff. Now remember, this is just government stuff. The way things work, there has to be protocols and things that happen in line with each other so that watches and warnings can go up, storm surge watches, tropical storm watches or warnings, and everything has to do with the fact that this gets some kind of a name rather than just Invest 99L. So they've come up with this potential tropical cyclone labeling to help get the ball rolling and get the public's attention. And my wife's phone was going off. The EAS on our radio, our public radio station, I guess every radio station was doing that. Tropical storm warning, kind of out of nowhere, but if you've been paying attention to my videos and other people that are in the know, I'm not the only one. Come on. I know that. We all know collectively that this was a possibility, but admittedly, this is kind of early here. This thing's really starting to ramp up, and I'll show you that as we go forward. First, though, let's look at the details, just in case you hadn't caught them yet. Tropical storm conditions and the potential for life-threatening storm surge over portions of the southeast and mid-Atlantic coasts beginning on Friday. So 2 p.m., the intermediate advisory, 10-12 millibars, winds 35 miles per hour. It's spread out right now, so that's not the big deal. You know, we'll talk about the wind in just a minute. The key messages, though, this is a really helpful infographic to understand these 4 bullet points: the low pressure area, life-threatening storm surge possibilities, tropical storm force conditions. What does that mean? 34 knots or 40 miles per hour, 39 miles per hour, whatever, or greater. And then, of course, heavy rainfall. And then you have these inset graphics that are part of the overall package. And then these other thumbnails up here. And this one here, the peak surge, this is important. 2 to 4 feet, you know, that is above ground level. It's not like the old days where it was above some mean sea level, low water mark or whatever. That was very confusing. This is above ground level. And as I mentioned yesterday, I thought this could happen, that we could get the Albemarle Sound, the Pamlico Sound, the Neuse River, and other areas where that onshore flow comes into North Carolina, piling up the water. The same thing for the lower Chesapeake Bay, and then right up even into the upper parts of the bay. This could be very problematic. All right, so that's why we have the storm surge forecast here. This could be on a weekend when people are probably making big plans to go to these waterways down here. And I expect that some of these advisories and watches and whatnot, these are not watches, these are predicted water levels. I think that's going to start to fill in through Delaware Bay, and up along parts of the Jersey and maybe even Long Island coastlines. I'm telling you, this is going to be more than people were thinking, and maybe even what I was thinking. We're seeing the modeling, we're seeing this coming together. Wait till I'll show you the satellite imagery. we're going to have something to deal with here. And, you know, yesterday I said, don't be surprised if this ramps up more. I'm thinking now, don't be surprised if this becomes a Category 1 hurricane. It's going to be sitting over very warm water. So before you besmirch me for saying that, let me show you why I'm thinking that. First of all, look at it on satellite. There it is. It looks like a comma. I talked about that yesterday. Once it stops looking like a comma and looks more like Nigel up here, of course, Nigel's in the far northern latitudes, that's when we're going to have problems. Right now, the energy is spread out over a pretty large area. It kind of looks like a backwards nor'easter. Normally, we see nor'easters, well, they come up the coast like that. You get the idea. It looks like a little hook or a cane or a comma. Once that energy focuses around a low-level center and really bundles over that very warm water that is sitting out here, it can ramp up very, very quickly. I'm telling you, believe me when I tell you, you only need 12 to 18 hours where the atmosphere is taking the air away from this system. It doesn't have to be your textbook upper-level anticyclone over it like you get in the deep tropics. Remember when Lee was a Category 5 and everything was just fanning out? All you got to do is evacuate that air efficiently in one manner or another that does not shear the system. Think Michael, that's an extreme. In 2018, a very small area of the Gulf of Mexico, we call that ventilated. It was ventilated very well. Michael was. This will be ventilated very well, and if it stays out over water enough, it could develop an inner core. That is even mentioned in the National Hurricane Center discussion from the 11 a.m. advisory from a friend of mine down there, Dan Brown. He wrote that package, and it takes that energy that it's spread out right now. It's kind of non-tropical. It's got its origin from non-tropical features, not the like here's tropical right here. That's a tropical wave. Big heat source, trying to bundle everything. It takes a while. This is going to go on to become a hurricane eventually. We'll talk about this in a minute. Nigel came from a tropical source of energy. Everything was already bundled to begin with. The ignition source for this, which will eventually, I believe, become Ophelia, was non-tropical in nature. Getting into the mechanics of it, what we call baroclinicity, and how the upper levels sort of set the spark, well, that gets into a more complicated discussion. But as a non-tropical beginning, you understand, that it'll eventually morph into a more bundled, compact tropical system, and that's going to happen, unfortunately, right as this is coming in to eastern North Carolina, southeast Virginia, and the Chesapeake. And it could try to keep on ramping up until it just runs out of warm water and the atmosphere starts to work against it. So this is going to be trying to ramp up all the way to landfall and then maybe even a little bit beyond. Remember, even the Pamlico Sound is still very, very warm right now. So there's 99L, also PTC 16, soon to be Ophelia, whatever. This is Nigel, so we'll put an N there. And this is going to be 90L eventually, if it's not already. And we'll have to watch this. Some potential for this to affect the islands directly. The modeling a little bit more favorable today with planting this over here in a week's time instead of down here. We'll talk about that a little later on in today's update. First, though, a close-up of our system here. This is what I mean. It's trying to bundle that energy. Still looks like a comma right now. So it's non-tropical in nature. It's got a front associated with it. And it's just not there yet. It's morphing, turning into a more bundled system, and then it should do so pretty rapidly right up here off the Outer Banks of North Carolina sometime on Saturday, and that gives it ample time to drop the pressure, consolidate the energy, just like when you see a skater and they pull their arms in and they spin faster. That's what this is trying to do. That is a great visualization. We've all seen it. If you haven't, I'm sure it's easily searchable on YouTube and everything else. A figure skater, they're spinning and then they pull their arms in. It's called the conservation of angular momentum. I don't know the math behind it, so we're not going to get into that, but I just know it when I see it. And this is trying to do that over the next 36 to 48 hours. All right? Weatherservice.gov, well, the weather.gov site for the National Weather Service is going to be very helpful. These are your tropical storm warnings out here. Gale watch, I think, if not a gale warning. And, I mean, this is really going to be problematic here. Let's just click on eastern North Carolina as a starter. I didn't go far enough east. All right, let's try again. How about there in Hyde County? Now we got it. So yeah, we have the storm surge watch, the tropical storm warning even for inland counties. Outer Banks, of course, included in all of that. And we can move our way up the coast and just look at Southeast Virginia as an example. Yes, this is problematic for a big area, Virginia Beach, up through all of the areas along the peninsula here, the Delmarva, and then this is eventually, I believe, going to shift north over time. And then our friends up here in New Jersey, I think this could be a problem for you all eventually as well, and of course for the Delaware Bay region, all right? So pay attention to this. You already have the rip current deal on the south-facing parts of Long Island and eastern New Jersey, so Belmar and areas like that, yes, this could be your problem as well. It's still, well, summer's almost over, right? The waning hours of official summer, but it's still nice and toasty out there generally. I mean, the weather's decent enough that people are going to want to go to the beach this weekend. Not going to happen. Not going to be good at all. What else? Yeah, so the bundling. Boy, wow, look at that. It's trying. I mean, we went from just barely anything yesterday to this today, and it is really starting to bundle up. It'll eventually look more like this, I believe. And look, there's our system out here, soon to be 90L if it isn't already. And that's what the heat looks like in the tropics. This is trying to get there. You can already see that rounded look to it. It's going to try to focus that energy. And then all of that's just going to kind of ride up here and take advantage of that very warm water out here. The Gulf Stream is there. The Gulf Stream is important because that's warm water that is moving underneath the system, constantly replenishing itself. Actual water temperatures, you can see that right here. 27 to 28 Celsius, so mid, low to upper 80s, depending on where you are. And our system out here is going to cross right over all this, 28, 29 Celsius. We're talking about 85, 86 degrees, something like that, Fahrenheit. Plenty of warm water to work with that has not been disturbed by Franklin or Lee. These areas out here, let's use black to make it stand out better. This is all disrupted, upwelled, churned, whatever you want to call it, water because of Franklin and Lee. Unfortunately, well, I mean, it's good that those didn't hit the southeast U.S., but they didn't really churn up the water here at all. The swells went along the surface, but that deep agitating action from Franklin and Lee up here, that did this. This is still very warm, not only in reality, but warmer than normal by just a little bit. And every little bit will matter for giving this system a little bit more punch as it comes into eastern North Carolina. The models, just real quick, want to show you what the GFS was showing from earlier today. Where are we looking? This is about 10 meters up, and the wind speed and the sea level pressure right there is our center of circulation, if you want to call it that, as it tries to get going. And watch what happens. I know it doesn't look impressive as I go through this, and you think, big deal, man, 1,000 millibars, upper 900, 99, whatever, 994. Trust me, this kind of slow movement, we're talking 48 hours here, and the onshore flow, you know that expression, when you know. The people that live up in this region, the Delmarva, the Chesapeake, the Outer Banks, the Sounds, Jersey coast, you know when you get that kind of wind blowing constantly onshore, you're going to have coastal flooding problems. Couple of high tides with onshore flow that's going to be pretty stiff. And if we zoom in and look at the southeast, you can really get an idea. These colors pop better. Reds here, 30s and 40s knots wise. And again, look, I've been out on the Outer Banks for stronger hurricanes, certainly. And this is not like that. But every one of these is different. This is approaching from the south. You're going to get that constant northeast flow. The high tide will come in. It's going to be hard to get out. You're going to pile up the Neuse River into areas like New Bern, maybe Washington, North Carolina, the Albemarle, the Pamlico. You know, seriously, you got to, especially people that live out there. I'm not too worried about you. You've been through this enough. But the visitors that might be coming down starting tomorrow through the weekend, Highway 12 could be closed. In fact, I expect it will be. And I'm going to be out there, and there's a very good chance I could be stuck out there. I might have to look at some escape plans, so to speak, especially if this looks like it might be impactful farther up the coast towards New Jersey. We'll worry about that more tomorrow, and I'll talk about my plans in just a minute. But this gives you an idea of the wind field of this thing, kind of zoomed in a little bit here on this map extent. That's not nothing. I know that's a double negative, but, and then look up there at the top here, these wind barbs coming in right into the Jersey coast and the Maryland and Delaware coasts. I mean, that's just hundreds of miles of onshore flow piling up the Atlantic as this thing moves from south to north. And we're talking about wind and waves here. There's also going to be the threat of very heavy rainfall in bands, and that's going to be problematic as well. Trees could come down, power outages. This will be a significant event. How significant? Well, we're going to have to just wait and see. But it is going to shape up to be a rather significant event. Now, the Euro is on the EC fast, as Dr. Cowan has it labeled here. But this gives us an idea at that 5,000 foot level. Look at how this really starts to crank up here. And then it moves. This is 48 hours out, so Saturday morning, right there off of Cape Lookout. And then it goes across Pamlico Sound from south to north, up into parts of the Chesapeake. I'm just telling you guys, I'm putting you on notice that everybody over here, you're going to get hammered. This is going to be a significant event. Beach erosion, coastal flooding, heavy rainfall, trees down, power outages. You'll know that something resembling a significant tropical storm and maybe even a hurricane passed through. And we weren't tracking this for the latter part or the better part of a week, right? This has only been a few days that this has popped up literally on the radar. Broadening things out just a little bit. This is the GFS. I do want to talk about our system out here. There's Nigel, by the way, so we'll put an N. This is our, we'll just put a P for now for PTC 16. But let's look down here at this feature. This is the energy that yesterday and the day before was pretty concerning a week out. But now it looks like there could be a weakness in the ridge that's just seemingly ever present this hurricane season that'll yank it north pretty much where Franklin and Lee were, roughly. And then it does something weird. We're way out in time here. Yeah, like, don't even worry about that. Let's see what happens. This is about a week out right there. And it's a comfortable distance away, we could all agree, from the Northeast Caribbean. But you know how it goes. If this ridging is stronger, this could be more southwest. If it's weaker, it could be on up here. Just watch it, see what happens. We saw what happened yesterday with some of the model runs. Do we flip-flop back and get that scenario again? It's a week plus out. I don't know the answer to that question. Nobody does definitively, no matter what they say on social media and elsewhere. It's hurricane season. You pay attention to these things. That's the bottom line. All right, my bottom line here, I'm going to be leaving in the next few hours, going up to New Bern, where I will set up, I grew up in New Bern, a camera over at Union Point, probably. That area floods pretty easily. And then I'm going to make my way up to Kitty Hawk, Kill Devil Hills area, and eventually down to Rodanthe, where I will stay the night at one of our friends' houses that he allows me to stay in. My colleague Jesse, who I mentioned earlier in the update, will be joining me maybe later tonight, certainly tomorrow. But then I need to see, will I need to be leaving the Outer Banks? Let me just draw on my map here a little bit and go up towards Jersey here. That's going to be hard to do. But if I need to, like if this looks like it's going to be more impactful farther north as well, I can leave my camera equipment in the Outer Banks and we'll get it later. And maybe I'll go up north towards Jersey. We'll wait and see about that. I also have some good friends and contacts up there. But that's a stretch, and I'm going to be sort of by myself depending on what Jesse can do to help. So stay tuned. All right? All right. So tomorrow we will be live on the YouTube channel. And, of course, for our supporters over on Patreon, you can log in and have access to all the stuff that you funded. Hey, you did. You helped make it happen. Oh, I will take a weather station with me as well and put that out there on the Outer Banks to get those wind speeds and the air pressure live. Also, lots of appearances on our partner Fox Weather. Looking forward to that. And it's going to be a big weekend coming up. This coastal storm probably going to be named Ophelia before all is said and done. And we'll go from there. I'll take my laptop with me, of course, and we'll do an update from the Outer Banks tomorrow morning and let you know what's happening from Rodanthe on the NC Outer Banks. All right? As always, thanks for tuning in from all of us at HurricaneTrack. Thank you for watching. I'll have more for you tomorrow from the Outer Banks of North Carolina.